Got traffic there. Blaster, just take it up to the departure end of the runway, then a left turn and a lowest downwind. Cessna over the threshold, coming up on the white dot, at or beyond the white dot, left turn first available. I got a high wind coming up on about a half-mile final, clear to land at or beyond. Traffic on the left base, you're following a Cessna down, low off your left. Square it up just a little bit, and then we're going to get you in. Start your descent, though. Start your descent on the base. Traffic on final, give me follow on base. Base traffic, start turning toward the numbers now. High wing coming up on quarter-mile final, take it all the way down to the green. Cessna taxiing on the green, expedite down to the next hard surface. Get me some speed, there you go, 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 go fast. This is going to be good. I got traffic on a mile final, you're following traffic ahead and to your right. High wing coming up on the threshold, take it all the way down to the green dot.
5 Charlie Sierra, 2 mile final.
A mile final, turn north, and we're going to just make you, we're going to bring you back around. Jet traffic's coming up on about a mile and a half final, runway 9er clear to land.
Okay, all right, let's listen up, guys. If you're on final for runway 9, I want you to offset to the left. I got a jet that's landing on runway 9. The jet's cleared to land runway 9 if you can make it. If not, just continue straight ahead. It looks like you're going around for the jet. That's fine, that's fine, that's fine.
Oh, we had one right in front of us, sir.
Dragger. Let's see, what we got, a tricycle. Tricycle, put it down. Tricycle, put it down. Tricycle, put it down. Tail dragger, down to the green dot, then a left turn. Short final here, you cleared land on 9 all the way to the white dot. Go down to the white dot. Find somebody to follow out here. Canard, just come to the runway, and I might have to just send you around. That'll be fine. And for the jet, you just want to stay in this pattern, or you want to go back out for an instrument approach?
Stay in a pattern, Charlie Sierra.
All right, just stay with me here for a minute. And my tail dragger, let's see, over the numbers, go down to the green. And Canard's going to have to go around. Canard, go around. Canard, go around. Canard, go around. And my high wing here over the runway, keep it airborne. Keep it airborne. You do not descend. Do not descend. You got a fast guy behind you. Do not descend. There you go. Keep it airborne. Keep it airborne. As soon as the guy behind you gets slowed down, I'm going to put you down. So keep it airborne. The one that just passed the white dot, make a left turn on the hard surface. All right, my high wing tail dragger, you can put it down now. You can put it down now. And Charlie Sierra, let me get you about a mile off. Let's see, Charlie Sierra, I lost. There you are. Make a left-hand turn. I'll try to resequence you here on the downwinds. We'll see how it looks. Short final, you're clear to land runway 9 on the white dot. Clear to land on the white dot. There you go. And the tricycle left on the hard surface and follow the flagman. Welcome. Thanks for being part of the show. And let's see, just find somebody to follow on the final, and as you get close to the runway, if it's not going to work, we're going to send you around and then try to re-sequence you. Now, who else got sent around that's not back on the downwind? The Canard?
Yeah, Canard.
All right, Canard, there's a Gulfstream up there that went around too. I just lost sight of him, but you're going to make kind of a left-hand turn and stay low. I think Charlie Sierra, what's your altitude?
3,200.
Okay, that'll be fine. Just maintain VFR. I don't know what else is up there above you. Probably most everybody's down here, so just make a left-hand turn. We'll try to get you back here.
Canard's got the jet in sight.
Okay, the RV, maybe an RV-10, whatever, here on final. Keep your speed up and go all the way down to the, aim for the green dot for me. Actually, keep your speed up. There's a guy behind you. Aim for the green dot, and I'm sure that's plenty of room for you to land on runway 9. You're clear to land on runway 9. Number 2, you're going to go down to the white dot. Follow the white dot. Actually, you know what? That's 1,500 feet. You're going to land at the white dot. The spacing looks adequate here. 2 guys on final. You're kind of tight there. Keep each other in sight, and you're going to aim for the white dot. If it's not going to work, we'll come up with a plan B. We might have to send you around. The second guy behind you out there in about a 2-mile final. Are you slow enough to be able to follow that guy in front of you? You need to go around. Well, I probably shouldn't ask that because I had about 5 guys answer me, so I should know better than that after 35 years, you would think, right? All right, so let me see. The guy who's number 1, it's number 1. What kind of airplane is he? An RV type. All right, RV type. Keep it airborne for me. Keep it airborne. And I got a fast guy behind you. The number 2 guy over the trees there. Go ahead and put it down on the numbers. Put it down on the numbers. My first guy just coming up on the numbers at the over the grass at the numbers. I want you to keep
T-minus 1 minute and counting.
Hello. Four, three, two, one.
Oh,
Hello, everybody. Happy Christmas. I can see that Ed's the only person who's made a bit of an effort tonight. I was looking for my antlers, but I lost them in a drunken party, and I'm not sure where my antlers have gone, so they have to come back next Christmas. So happy Christmas, everybody. Welcome to the last live stream before Christmas. Right, let's get on. So let's deal with the fact that we're a bit early tonight. I'm not entirely sure why that is, but I think somebody who's going to remain nameless, Annabelle, set the live stream up to start at 7 o'clock. And with this particular software, if you get beyond a certain point, it goes, well, they're not there. I'm going to can it. So we had to like jump in and go, oh my God, we better do this quickly. As it turns out, we're not too bad. We're only a minute or two early.
Not too shabby.
Sorry? We're not too bad, are we? Not doing too bad. I don't know if Annabelle's there or not, but
she is in the comments.
Is that right? Yes. Well, there you go. We'll be fun. Yet another thing to blame you for, Annabelle. But it's Christmas, so we'll forgive.
She said, I had a few glasses of mulled wine with the neighbours.
Yes, well, don't do that again. That's all I can say. Right, waiting in the green room, we have Mr. Tom Haines. Tom was Editor-in-Chief of AOPA US. He's seen a lot, done a lot, and flown lots as well. So we're really looking forward to talking to Tom. And unlike our previous US guest, he's actually here. The previous guest didn't actually turn up. Couldn't get the idea of that Zulu time kind of thing, but we'll sort that out one day. What have we got coming up in the news? There's an interesting take on planning permission PR. It's not great news. Grant Shapps' airfield protection plan failed to protect itself. What else have we got? Flight design, a bit of turbulence. We'll come to that later. And the CA finally gets around to certifying the Cirrus G7 and Piper's M700. So well done, speedy CA. Don't forget, one last thing from me before I hand over to Sky Demon. If you like our content, then do us a favor. Please give us a like, subscribe to our channel. Better still, join the Flyer Club if you can. So that would be really good. And you'll notice top right by Johnny's left ear, there's a little QR code there. Scan that. That will take you straight to the page where you can join the Flyer Club. So scan it and join. That would be really good if you do that. And if you're watching on catch up, thank you very much as well. Right, nearly there. Sky Demon, they've supported us this year, they supported us last year, they supported us the last year before last, and as far as I know, they're supporting us next year. So thank you very much, Sky Demon. Here is your weekly tip. We got some Sky Demon coming up in 2025, including at least one and possibly two specials from their offices, which should be jolly good. So here you go on your tip from Tim himself.
Hi, I'm Tim from Skydemon. Welcome to this week's top tip. If you have an airfield you fly to quite often, or you're just quite interested in, you can add it as a permanent favourite in the Airfields tab. To do this, press Add Favourite down here, type in the name, select it, and you'll see it always down here under Favourites, even if you've got another route planned far away. The airfield is always there, so you can quickly see its weather, or go into it, see current NOTAMs, or access its plates. To remove it as a favourite, press the pin button, and go unpin from favourites, and we can see it's disappeared again. For our full user manual, go to skydemon.aero and choose Help and Support.
There you go.
I love listening to Tom. Tim.
I just realised that his favourite was Bruges Ostend, and I happen to know Tim's a bit of a fan of Bruges, and only for one. I think it's for one reason only. It's because there's a bar there called Beer and Ribs, which has got like 100 beers on tap, and then as many ribs as well. I've never actually managed to get there, but I think that's got to be worth a visit, don't you?
Could well be.
Yeah, I think I've been.
You've been?
You think you'd be?
Yeah, well, those Belgian beers, they tend to be like quite punchy, don't they?
That's what he thinks he's been.
Yeah, exactly.
7 or 8% beers, and you don't need too many of those. Right.
Absolutely.
Right, that's me.
Yes, if Father Christmas were a weatherman, he'd probably be our own Simon Keeling. So shall we see what weather gifts he has in store for us? Simon, hello.
Hey, evening, everybody. Hope you're getting ready for Christmas. You can see I am. I wasn't sure whether to wear this tonight, but I thought let's go for it. Why not? It's Christmas, and actually, the Christmas flying weather is not looking that bad. This weekend, not so good, but for Christmas itself, it's looking all right. So, shall we take a look at the days leading up to Christmas Eve. This is what we've got in store. For tomorrow, cold front coming southeastwards, bringing rain into much of Scotland, Ireland, into western parts of Wales, northwest England as well. You see here on the cloud-based forecast, those bases just falling 1,000-foot bases, tops probably at around about 12 to 15,000 feet. Ahead of that, eastern parts of England should be okay at first, but the breeze is going to be increasing. This front moves in, brings rain later on in the day. But I think certainly sort of the Eastern Midlands, East Anglia, Southeast England, probably okay tomorrow morning before going non-VFR tomorrow afternoon. Saturday, not looking particularly brilliant. Looks like being a really windy day. This low passing north of Scotland on Saturday. I've got a suspicion that may get into named storm status, but only really for northwestern parts of Scotland. Elsewhere, gusts of 40, perhaps 45 knots. Fronts moving south. It's not looking great. We've got outbreaks of rain as that front moves through. Bases probably about 1,000 foot or less. Tops 15 to 20,000 feet. Becoming brighter in Scotland and Northern Ireland later, but to be honest, for most of us, I think it's just going to be too darn windy. Sunday looks pretty breezy as well. I guess for the diehards, do you see what I did there? Die Hard Christmas movie. Yeah. It looks like it is possible just to get something in there, I suppose, if you're feeling braver. West northwesterly, probably blowing for most of us about 25 knots as a mean, gusting up to 40 knots, 50 to 60 knots northern and northwestern Scotland. Frequent heavy showers across western parts of the country, but probably drier and brighter in the east. But again, I think for many of us, it's just going to be too breezy. But Monday looks a bit different. Monday looks to be a better day. Ridge of high pressure is going to be building in. It will bring better conditions, particularly on Monday morning. Cloud increasing across Ireland, western Scotland later, bringing some drizzle in during the day. But for most, it looks as if it shouldn't be too bad a day. Now, for Christmas Eve, I just need to get into character. So excuse me just one second.
Ho, ho, ho.
Oh, ho, ho. Right, Christmas Eve. This is how it looks. Oh, well, this is how to scare you kids, isn't it? So not looking too bad, actually, for most of us. Some drizzle, some low cloud across western parts of Scotland, northern and western parts of Ireland, perhaps northwest England, perhaps western Wales, southwest England. Classic sort of southwesterly stuff, bringing that low cloud in. Inland starts pretty gloomy, but I think gradually the cloud breaks through the afternoon. Winds are going to be lighter. Typical bases away from those western coasts, 3,000 foot, tops about 10,000 feet. And actually Christmas Day and Boxing Day looking fairly similar. Bases around about 2,000-3,000 feet. The tops getting up at about 8,000 to 10,000 feet. Light winds and not bad conditions at all if you can get away from those western coasts. Right, I will leave you that for now. We're updating at WeatherWeb all the time throughout Christmas. And don't forget Aviation Weather School on the Tuesday evenings of the 7th and 14th of January next year. Right, I will wish you a ho, 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 a very happy and a safe Christmas. Bye for now.
Simon, happy Christmas. Thank you very much for the weather.
Bye.
We'll see you soon.
Fantastic.
Look at that. Jolly, what? I mean,
I was.
We fly from Wadswick on Sunday, on Christmas Day, do you know?
Sorry, is
Wadswick, is it open on Christmas Day? I mean, not the shop, obviously, but
yeah. Well, the shop's not open, but the airfield's open.
Brilliant. Excellent. Yeah, I think I'll put this for.
Is it the one day where you could go and fly over the Salisbury Plain danger areas?
No, I think for most of Christmas they kind of bring them down. They bring them down to something like 1,500 feet or something.
Yeah,
and you can fly over them. But I think it's the day I think over the Christmas period you can generally drive over Salisbury Plain and go and use all the roads. Although I don't know whether they've got any special. We're training some Ukrainian pilots. Wink, wink, nod. I think going on at the moment or not, to be honest. But that'll be cool. Excellent. Look forward to that.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. I
News.
think news. Dave, you're up first.
Yes. Well, our top story this week is again about Nottingham City Airport. I'll just recap very quickly. This is Nottingham City Airport. It's about 1 o'clock in that picture. I chose this picture because look at that. That is all greenbelt. It's all farmers' fields. And if the local plan, which wants to build a whole thing with houses, that whole area will become one big, effectively new town. The airfield is part of the plan. They want to build 2,700 houses on the airfield. But I should stress, this is just the plan so far. It's going through consultation. It hasn't got planning permission. There's still a long way to go, which is why there's a campaign to try and stop it happening. However, the latest turn of events is that the airfield operator, Truman Aviation, which used to be the airfield owner until they sold the land to a property developer, anyway, they've issued this very weird statement saying that everyone who wants to keep their aircraft at the airfield, anyone who wants to use the facilities at the airfield, such as the maintenance, the flying school, the cafe, it's a very busy little airfield, Nottingham City Airfield. Anyone who wants to keep using that has to support the planning application, which was about to go in. You might say that's blackmail. I wouldn't go so far as that.
Did they said you could be out if you don't support it. It's going to be it's going to be literally 2-3 months, whatever it is. If you do support it, then you should be. We think maybe you'll be able to use the airfield until it actually shuts.
That's right. That's right. They reckon that by April next year they'll have to close the airport because the property developer will just say get out. That's not exactly clear because Vistry Group, the property developer, said we didn't say that at all. So there's something weird going on here. I won't mention what property developers call uplift clauses, whereby if you sell a bit of land, such as an airfield, to a property developer, and it hasn't got planning permission, it's only worth so much money. It's agricultural land, really. Should the property developer then get planning permission, it's worth a lot more. This is where the uplift clause comes in. But we don't know the truth. We don't know it all yet. The campaign to save the airfield and actually save a bit of greenbelt as well, just as important to many people. The campaign goes on.
I think it's because I read the letter, and the letter's all over social media. If you want to go and have a full read of the letter, it doesn't kind of say like if you're one of the people who doesn't. Yes, indeed, Kat. The letter doesn't actually say if you're one of the people who don't support the houses, you will have to move out. It's just it's not like on an individual basis. I don't think it's kind of like, look, let's support the housing application, and we may stay open for a bit longer. And if we don't, then come April, we could all be out. And certainly, there are people who've been given notice to leave.
One of our contributors, Matt Dearden, keeps his pub there.
So I think it's you could put it down to a letter that doesn't necessarily say what was meant to be said. I don't know. But it's certainly a confusing situation. As Kath Burnham pointed out, the property developer's going, what? That wasn't us. I didn't know what's going on there. So it's a funny one.
Yeah, I fear with a government that has an enormous home building target and an absolute appetite to try and meet that. I fear this is going to become a more common story for us with threats to airfields.
Yep. Which leads into our second story, really.
It does lead us to our second story. So the second story is, does anyone remember, there's a picture of him somewhere, anyone remember this chap?
I don't know. Is he playing an accordion?
He is playing an accordion, yeah. That. Let me just go, I've got another little clip here that you might see. Just.
Oh. Is he frozen?
No, it will, really, promise. What's going on? What?
Hold on, someone delivered us a 40 Ian Seeger tonight.
There you go. Did you have to do that, Ed, or was it?
No, that wasn't me. I was enjoying your stationariness.
That was it. Anyway, so yeah, that is Grant Shapps. Grant Shapps, as you remember, at one point was the Minister for Transport,
Secretary of State.
Secretary of State for Transport, which is a more elevated position than just a mere minister, isn't it? And then he went on. Then his career went on to do something. He became the Secretary of State for Defence, and all sorts of. And I think he became the person who did the sums behind the scenes when James Cleverly was due to become elected the leader of the Conservative Party, and somehow everyone said got it wrong. And anyway, that's politics. Who knows what's going on there? So Grant Shapps, as you know, is a pilot. Flies at one point in Saratoga. Not sure what he flies anymore.
Still flying it.
Yeah. Still flying. He created, I believe, within the Department for Transport, a General Aviation group, which at one point was rumoured to have more people in it than the CA's General Aviation group. And he also created the Airfield Protection Team at the Civil Aviation Authority, and their job was to help defend airfields from various bits of planning. So if someone wanted to run a bit of a planning permission application in and the CA disagreed with it, the Civil Aviation Authority would saying, no, I think this is too close and you can't safeguard it and it's not right, etc., etc. And a lady called Angela Rayner, who is now the Deputy Prime Minister, before she was in opposition at this point, kind of said, hang on a second, there's all these taxpayer fund is going towards this thing to protect airfields that the actual Secretary of State for Transport uses himself. That's not right. It's a bit, and there was kind of official letter, and basically it was kind of news for about a day, because if we're honest, and unless we haven't got short memories, there were so many scandals at the time that barely broke ground.
Do you know, in that letter that Angela Rayner wrote, she also mentioned Flyer.
Yeah,
she did mention Flyer, didn't she? Yeah. It wasn't our fault though. I was quite amazed by that at the time when I saw that. I mean, clearly, I bet you if you were to speak to her or anyone else similar to her, you go, putting Flyer in, they probably go, what are you talking about? I'm sure there must be a gazillion research doing that kind of thing. Anyway, it seems that department of the Civil Aviation Authority is being disbanded. It helped protect some airfields, maybe, but it didn't protect itself. So it's
David Eads says the AAT were really good in helping fight the biodigester that was threatening Easter. So
absolutely, yes, indeed. And they provided some really good stuff and some good resources, and I think there was a political decision that it was the wrong thing to spend money on.
Yeah.
So it is no more. And I think I'm right in saying that I can't remember his name now. I wish I could remember his name. The guy who headed it up was at one point manager of Gloucester and had been at Kemble and stuff before that.
James Head.
James, that's it. Yeah, absolutely. That's the change. So there you go. So it is no more.
Shame.
So
shame. Yeah.
Although we disagreed over the requirement for yellow jackets at Gloucester, me and James.
You did, didn't you?
I was kind of like, really? Really.
Nick Allen makes a good point, which we were talking about the other day. As Grant is no longer an MP, maybe he should come on the live stream.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Nick.
Funny you should say that. He's on our list of people to invite, and I think he's been invited. And I think currently there was a big fat no next to his name.
When was that from? Maybe he's sat at Grant, if you're out there, sat next to your fire, sat next to your roaring fire, watching the live stream. Come and join us.
Come and join us as a guest. That would be good. We'd like to ask you lots of questions. I'm sure lots of other people would. So come on, you can do it. Don't be afraid.
Annabelle says, "Call me Grant." Good use for apostrophe. Otherwise,
Grant Cook.
Grant.
Bit of a ring. Okay, right.
Some sad insolvency news, unfortunately. German aircraft maker Flight Design has run out of cash. It's a common story in aviation sometimes. Anyway, they filed for insolvency. Flight Design is saying an international customer has not yet paid undisputed claims in the mid six-figure range. They've also got another delayed payment, and that leaves them looking for alternative financing channels and investors. A shareholder couldn't agree to a short-term offer from an investor, and hence insolvency. So it's a similar story to 2017 when the main shareholder then lifted over ownership of the company. Flight Design is based at Kindle Airfield in Hürselberg, and
where's it based at? I missed that.
Hürselberg, is it? And has production sites in Sumperk in Czechia and Kherson in Ukraine. And obviously, the invasion of Ukraine meant Flight Design had to relocate its main manufacturing base to Sumperk, which did affect production. Flight Design has produced over 2,000 aeroplanes since 1988. So I haven't flown in one, though. You have, haven't you, Ian?
A long time ago, yeah. One of the first ones to come into the UK.
And Dave, I think, has.
Yeah, I went to the Flight Design Owners Club annual fly-in, a place called Page, Arizona, which is in all the Canyonlands, and we had a superb few days flying these aircraft in and out of the various strips around there.
The owners club, does that mean like everyone who's owned the company over the years, or is that?
No, it's American pilots who own flight design aircraft, and there's a lot of them actually. And they're a good bunch of people.
Yeah,
fun.
I suspect we haven't seen the end of flight design. I think we'll see them back at some point. They
as we might talk about later in Fancy Hangar, it's a bankrupt aeroplane company is just an opportunity for someone else to come along and pour money into it. So,
just part of the development process, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Ian,
right.
You've got Christmas Grinch story.
Oh yeah, this is just a funny little story to be not funny, a strange little story. We got a press release from the Civil Aviation Authority, and it was a little bit cringe-worthy, or some might say crimble-worthy, I guess, at this point in time. It was like the Civil Aviation Authority has allowed Santa into the UK airspace, but we've checked that the parcels are all tied down. It was kind of like a jolly thing, really not intended for pilots, but more for the general public. And so we commissioned the Grinch to write up the press release in a slightly different way and say, if you go on our site and have a look, it points out that the Civil Aviation Authority basically buried the Christmas spirit and Santa and the reindeer along with it under all the paperwork and a few other bits and pieces. So the Grinch did a pretty good job there.
I think there's a major oversight though in all of this, because I don't think it's the CAA going no problem no problem with all of this. But what's going to happen when Border Force get involved? Because clearly they're going to go, hang on, no, this doesn't meet any of our requirements, and you, matey, have got a big fine.
I know. And talking of which, I've had about 3 emails over the last 2 days about Border Force updating this guidance, that guidance, and every other bit of guidance you can imagine. So I need to go and have a look at that and see what's going on. But
well, at least it's not saying, Mr. Seeger, you've done something bad.
No, well, thanks to the weather, work, and a bunch of other stuff, I'm having trouble doing anything full stop, let alone bad.
Yeah,
I can barely manage. I haven't even managed mediocre, but which is normally what I aim for. what I aspire to generally. But there you go. Go and have a look at the Christmas Grinch story. Talking of slightly strange stories, there's another one, I think. Johnny.
Yeah, it's a sad story for one person. A Pegasus Quantum 15, which was based at Athies Moor near Alnwick in Northumberland, decided to go on a final flight without its pilot on the 3rd of October. The AAIB released a short report from what happened earlier this week. The airplane had a flat battery, and of course, he decided to hand prop the well, could have been she, I don't know, but they decided to hand prop the airplane, and of course, the engine started. And the airplane flew off. Fortunately, it was pointing towards the east, so it took off straight towards the coast and then out over the North Sea. And apparently, the report said it was tracked by radar as it flew over the coast of just north of Newcastle, and flew out over the sea. And they presume it crashed into the sea. Based a few miles away is RAF Bulmer, which is home to the Air Surveillance and Control System, which is the UK's sort of air defence radar network. And they presumably saw what was going on and either didn't mind and just let it happen, or maybe it did get shot down over the North Sea. Who knows?
You see, if that was America, people would be going, drone.
Yeah, specifically New Jersey. Yeah,
there was probably someone going, scramble a tiger moth, scramble a tiger moth.
Are we sure it wasn't just fed up with the cold and has gone it's gone to migrate south or something?
Probably. Right. We're getting towards the end of the news. We're getting close to our guest. So, Mr. Haines, if you can hear me in the green room, start limbering up and getting ready.
I've got before that though, I've got a certification story because CAA and EASA have been busy approving types. The EASA probably a bit more busier than CAA, who have probably taken a little bit of time. You know, they are busy chaps. But the UK CAA has certified the Piper M700 Fury. That's the range-topping single-engine turboprop six-seater from Piper. It's fast, 301 knots, and long-legged, 1,400 nautical miles, and full of all sorts of kit. Very cool device. And Piper says there's dates in 2025 when there's going to be a sales tour. So if you're in the market for one of those, give them a call. The EASA and UK CAA type certification for the Cirrus SR Series G7, that's also been announced. That was obviously launched a year ago, so that's taken a little bit of time, but that's probably worth waiting for. So that's the whole range of Cirrus aircraft. That's SR20, 22, and SR22 and 22T. And finally, there's a very new face in the world of certified GA, and that's the AURA Aero Integral R. Now, this is an aerobatic trainer, first flew in June 2020, and has basically had 250 hours of flight testing and completed that on 8th of November this year. So AURA Aero got the certification and expect to ramp up production with first deliveries to customers next month. So that's really quick to action. So and apparently they're hoping to deliver 15 aircraft in 2025. So and they're obviously working on a nose-wheel version, the S, and the E, which is electric motor and batteries.
The tail drag version, the R, when I saw it at Friedrichshafen, and it had real presence. It was a real great looking aircraft.
It's a great looking airplane.
Is it the what's the airplane I'm thinking of? The Robin Cap one? Is it Cap 222 or Cap 232?
232.
It looks like a twin version of one of those when you look at it. To me, anyway.
It's got look of, it's like Cap 10 meets Cap 21 meets Cap 23. Was it Cap 222? Which was when Cap bought the rights to Moodry bought the rights to composite American design, wasn't it? So yeah, but it's like you say, it's a big, long-legged, it's got real presence.
We'll have to ask Tom a bit later or shortly about the Fury, because I mean the M700 is a great aircraft, but I can't help thinking that the Fury is a bit of a bonkers name for a 4 million.
It's still
maybe it's an American thing. It's like, I've got a Fury.
I still think that the naming department at Piper is an 8-year-old boy. So
he's the brother of the guy who's working for Jaguar now. So, sorry. That's you're completely wrong, Dave. Because Fury, it's a strong statement, isn't it? That's Jaguar, not a strong statement. That's smoked something and lost the plot.
We're nearly there. Right? Wouldn't have escaped your notice that it's Christmas, and this is the last live stream of the year, but we're not gonna come back on Boxing Day. However, we did go and create a little video special for you that's going to be released on Boxing Day at 7:30 in a week's time. And here, for your delight, it's just a little short 1 or 2 minute trailer for that particular video, at least if it will run. That is.
You've got no canopy.
It's because it's a drone.
I think central gravity is least of my problems.
Yeah.
But,
a little person on the back of yours. Good luck with that. I'll just attach it now.
Ready? 3, 2, 1.
4, 5, 6.
What's going on here? Hang on a second.
There we go.
I didn't realise it didn't automatically come back. Sorry about that, people. That's our professionalism. As you can see, 2024 reaching new heights. Yes, I hope you enjoyed that little film. It'll be out on Boxing Day, as I said. And it's basically 5 of us putting together a little. It's just a bit of fun.
Did involve some rockets and was slightly hazardous.
I don't think it was. Looking back at it, I think
nobody died.
Nobody died. Nothing caught fire. Nobody died. Nobody got close to dying or catching fire. I think next year we need to do better.
There we go, Johnny.
More danger. Right. So, Fly Club members, thanks for joining us. If you're not a member, you can join via the QR code, which is next to Dave's head. Landing fees for this month, which hopefully people can make use of next week, are Audley End, Solent, Tibenham, Yatesbury, and 50% off at Sandown. And for Tom's benefit, yes, we do have to pay to land everywhere. January landing fees, we've got Swansea, Retford, Gamston, Perth, and Sherburn and Elmet. And you can also catch up on Greener's webinar on forced landings, which happened earlier this month. And we've got Mr. Weatherman Simon booked in early January for his webinar on winter weather flying. So do join the club, £5 a month or £52 for the year. Make use of it. We've got 2 years worth of webinars that you can catch up on, which is just a tiny portion of all the other content that we produce on fly.co.uk. So get involved. And also, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Fabulous. So tonight's guest is Tom Haines, trailblazer in aviation journalism with over 30 years of experience. His career took off after answering a help wanted ad for an associate editor role at Professional Pilot magazine. Despite having no magazine experience, that chance decision led to a remarkable journey, culminating in his role as editor-in-chief at Aircraft Owner and Pilots Association at the young age of 33. Tom, it's without a doubt, has helped shape the future of aviation media, transitioning AOPA's content from print to digital, while inspiring pilots worldwide through his articles, videos, and public appearances. A passionate pilot with over 45 years of flying experience, Tom has flown more than 100 types of aircraft, including being type-rated in the B-25 Mitchell bomber, and he's a long-time Beechcraft Bonanza owner. And as if to top that off, inducted into the Living Legends of Aviation Hall of Fame in 2023. Please join me in welcoming Tom Haines to the show.
We need to get a round of applause sound effect, don't we?
I know. That deserves it. If anyone does, Tom, it does. Tom definitely does. And welcome to the show, Tom. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys, for having me. After that introduction, I think we could just end right now, and I'll just go on my way, and I think we've said it all.
So was it really? It was, you were just flicking through jobs wanted, and you spotted this advert?
Absolutely. It was, I was a young newspaper reporter up in northwestern Pennsylvania where my wife and I had grown up. We went to high school together, and I had ended up with a journalism degree, and I learned to fly in high school. And we were on our second wedding anniversary. We drove from northwestern Pennsylvania down into Virginia Beach, which is got to be like a 6-hour drive or 7-hour drive. And we were headed back on a Sunday through the Washington, D.C. area, stopped for a bio break. I grabbed a Washington Post. And you remember, back in, this was 1985. I remember in those days, newspapers were super thick with want ads on Sundays, at least in the States. And so I would just thumb through the paper. She was driving, and I just saw this little teeny ad for some magazine I'd never heard of, looking for an associate editor, pilot certificate preferred. And I would have never, ever have been any reason to be in that spot, to ever see that newspaper, the Washington Post, except we just happened to be passing through on that particular day. And anyhow, I'd sent them off a resume, and a few days later got a call, and they invited me down to Washington, D.C., where they were based for an interview, and got the job. And it completely pivoted our lives in a vastly different direction than we were headed in rural northwestern Pennsylvania.
Okay. And what did, when you went to professional pilot, what did that look like in the first few months and year?
Well, it was both it was a dramatic change in our lives, and like I said, we grew up in a very rural area, and moving to the Washington, D.C. area and living in the city. My wife got a job. She's a nurse. She got a job right downtown Washington, so she was commuting into the city every day. And I was commuting to Washington National Airport, where our offices were in those days at Professional Pilot magazine. So from a lifestyle standpoint, it was an unbelievable change. And I was totally green. I had never written for a magazine before, had knew a little bit about aviation, but not that much. And a couple of people took me under their wing in the aviation industry and kind of showed me the way. And I'm really appreciative of the folks at Professional Pilot magazine back in the day. Murray Smith started that magazine back in the late 70s, as I recall. And it's still out there today. He has since passed. but I do credit him a lot with taking a chance on a 26-year-old kid who didn't have much experience in much of anything other than putting a few words together for a newspaper and a little bit of radio work before that. But anyhow, it completely changed our lives. I was there about 2.5 years when I saw an opening at AOPA Pilot magazine, which was just up in Maryland, so only about an hour north. And by that point, we were ready to get out of the city. We wanted to experience it. We'd experienced it for a couple of years, and now we're like, okay, let's go back to a smaller town. And Frederick, Maryland is where AOPA US is headquartered. So I got the job. We moved up into the Frederick area, and that was 1988, and have been in this area ever since. And I ended up spending 34 years at AOPA before I retired 2.5 years ago, 29 of those as editor-in-chief. So it was quite a ride, wonderful experience.
And I guess did that seem like a major step when you went to AOPA?
It was a bigger magazine for sure. But I went in, by the time I left Professional Pilot magazine, I was executive editor, so a little higher position. And I went in as an associate editor at AOPA. So kind of back down to the person who writes all of the news briefs and handles, in those days, all the printed press releases we used to get in the mail, if you can believe it, before email. And so I was sort of back down at the bottom of rung of the ladder. But again, I had a couple of people there. Richard Collins, many of you probably know him from his many decades at Flying Magazine. He had just started as editor-in-chief in those days of AOPA. It's a funny story, actually. He started April 1st of 1988. I started Monday, April 4th of 1988. And I had been offered the job at AOPA 2 weeks earlier by Tom Horn. Again, some of you probably know Tom, and he was running the publication group at the time as sort of on an interim basis. He offered me the job. I resigned from Professional Pilot magazine when I accepted the job at AOPA, gave 2 weeks notice, and was ready to start on Monday the 4th, when about a week earlier, so about a week after I'd given my notice to leave, I heard that Richard Collins was coming on board as editor-in-chief at AOPA. And I'd never met Richard before, had no idea whether he thought I was a good hire or not. So he started on Friday. Monday morning, I showed up quietly, found my cubicle, quietly went to work, and hoped it all worked out. And it did. Richard was great. He was a great mentor. I flew with him a lot. He was super helpful in the cockpit of just let me fly his P210 all over the place with him. And I learned so much from him. He's another one that, just eternally grateful for his guidance over the decades.
So what was your so obviously going in at the level that you went in, and then worked your way up to editor-in-chief at 33? How did that all come about?
Yeah, so I was associate editor when I started, and then I don't know, maybe I was less than a year later, I got promoted to senior editor, which was the best time of my life. Okay, if I could go wind the clock back and do all over again, I think I would just stay as a senior editor, because it's really cool. You get, almost like an unlimited travel budget. You kind of make up your own assignments. You have no staff, no budget to worry about. And you just go out and fly airplanes and write great stories and coordinate photo missions and all that sort of thing. And it was wonderful. And I flew all over the place in those couple years that I was a senior editor. And then they made me an executive editor, which gave me some more responsibilities in the office, and then a vice president. And then Mark Twombly, who was the editor-in-chief, he left, and Phil Boyer promoted me then to editor-in-chief and senior vice president. And, it was a wonderful career. But at that point, I had so many responsibilities in the office that I didn't get to go out and do as many cool things as I did as a senior editor. But come on, let's face it, even after that, for the coming 3 decades that I was in that role, I had a lot of wonderful experiences out flying airplanes all over the world. Of all kinds, of all types, getting a couple of jet type ratings and the B-25 second in command type rating and a bunch of other cool airplanes and flying experiences. So nothing to complain about for sure.
Good. So, I'm definitely going to ask you, out of all the things that you've flown, what have been favorites?
Oh, wow. A little bit of a gigolo, like, the last thing that I flew. But, I've owned an A36 Bonanza for, 20, at least 25 years now, of one sort or another. The one in the picture you can that's the one that I'm currently partners with. I bought that with two other partners about 3 years ago. And the one you can see over my shoulder, it's partly over my shoulder, up here, is the one that I bought in 1999. It was a 1972 model. And I owned that for just over 20 years, 21, 22 years, and then sold that to one of my colleagues at AOPA, actually. And he's still flying it. And I bought the newer one, the 98 model, with a couple of partners who were employees at AOPA. And so we've been having a great time with that thing. And we've done hundreds of photo missions using those between those two airplanes, take the doors off the back, and it makes a great photo platform. Photographer sits in the aft facing seat in the back. And we've had that airplane all over the United States for photo missions and video missions and all kinds of stuff. It's been fun. I joke that when I was going to sell that first airplane, I would sell it, the airplane with a certain number of airframe hours on it, and the doors would be sold separately because they would have a lot fewer airframe hours or flight hours on them because we flew around so much with the doors off. But anyhow, it was it's been a great time. So anyhow, to answer your question, I guess I love Bonanzas because I've just had so many great experiences in them. But gosh, I've flown so many other. I've flown, the blimps and the Zeppelins, the Goodyear Zeppelins, and I've gotten to do something probably very few people on the planet have done, in that we actually ended up almost happenstance doing formation flying with two Zeppelins. Actually, with two Zeppelins. We were the third one in the neighborhood, but wasn't really in formation with us. So we were up flying with the Goodyear people outside of Dayton, Ohio, where they're based, and flying one of the Zeppelins, and the other one was coming in from Florida for some maintenance. And so we could see them way out there. And so we kind of met up, and we had a little bit of Zeppelin to Zeppelin formation going on for a while, taking photos and that sort of thing. So not very many people, I think, can say that.
I'm guessing for the initial closure part, when you're head to head with a Zeppelin, it's like closing speed. It's like 20 knots. It's like,
that's right. That's right. Yeah, they're still coming. Yeah, there they are.
Sorry, just jump in for a second, because I mean, for people my age, you think the 80s was only yesterday, but actually the 80s was quite a getting on for 40 odd years. Over that time that you were at AOPA, you obviously have seen that general aviation industry change. Can you kind of think of any very pivotal days where I mean, I can remember sort of 9/11 was a pivotal day, but other things like that over the last 40 years that kind of really stand out as remarkable times?
Sure, a lot of them. I mean, the general aviation business is so cyclical. We've had so many ups and so many downs, but the airframe business, and actually the whole aviation business, general aviation business in the 80s and well into the 90s was, so stagnant. There was just nothing going on. We had NASA projects that started to infuse some new aerodynamics and things into general aviation that resulted in Cirrus, for example, and their wing cuff design and that sort of thing that kind of brought something new into aviation that we hadn't seen in a while. We saw a lot of developments around propellers and that sort of thing in the 90s. In the United States, we had the General Aviation Revitalization Act in 1994 that finally relieved the general aviation manufacturers of at least some of the liability exposure they were facing that was really stifling a lot of development. We had Piper Aircraft went into bankruptcy at that time, in part because of liability. Cessna had shut down all of their piston manufacturing in the 80s, and they had, Russ Meyer at Cessna had agreed that if this legislation passed, that he would bring the piston manufacturing back. And in fact, he did. Once that passed in August of 1994, they almost immediately broke ground on a new factory in Independence, Kansas, and built a big factory out there to bring the 172 and the 182 back and the 206. So that was an exciting time and very interesting. Piper emerged from bankruptcy about that time, and they started to, infuse some dollars into R&D. And so that happened. And then about the same time as when Garmin came along and really started to make a big investment in technology for general aviation, and we began to see some development there after years and years of really the same old avionics that we'd had for a couple of decades. GPS, of course, being a big part of that. And I remember flying with Garmin in a Mooney in Kansas, the first GPS approach I ever flew. And again, that was sort of a turning point for new types of approaches, and the FAA really got on board with developing new GPS approaches across the country. And for once, the federal agency was actually leading the industry, and that they were developing new approaches. And then WAS came along, which gave us even better GPS positioning. They ended up WAS approaches at a faster rate than it seemed like anybody was able to keep up with from like Jeppesen and the government plating offices, for example. So it was those were very interesting times and very pivotal in sort of developing general aviation as we know it here in the 21st century. And now we all take all that for granted. GPS approaches, and kind of came hand in glove with that was enhanced ground proximity warning systems and TAWS, terrain awareness systems, moving maps. Back in the day, in the 80s and into the 90s, nobody had a moving map, and if you did, it was a little green Argus one that was about that big. Now we've got full color moving maps in our airplanes for the most part, and all of that, was very interesting from an avionics standpoint, starting in the mid 90s, and continuing today, and most recently for us in the United States with ADS-B, which provides not only our position to air traffic control, allows better control of traffic, but also for GA means that we get back into the cockpit weather and traffic information, so that pretty much any airplane out there, if you've got electrical system at all, even not really, if you got a battery powered iPad or something, you can get traffic and weather in the cockpit, which is pretty phenomenal and a great aid in the situational awareness that we just didn't have 10 or 15 years ago.
And tragic times?
Well, 9/11, of course, was just a horrible experience for all of us on so many levels. And what was very frustrating in the days immediately after was that general aviation was like the airlines, where everybody was shut down for a couple of days. And the airlines came back pretty quickly by the weekend. That happened on a Tuesday. And AOPA was heavily involved in discussions with the security agencies and with the FAA and others to try to get aviation up and flying again. The airlines back in a few days, but they really kept a lot of restrictions on general aviation airplanes, which made no sense, of course, because general aviation had nothing to do with the attacks. And yet the airlines were up flying within a few days. They really wanted to restrict airspace around all kinds of things. Any major airport, they wanted to put in, major temporary flight restrictions. We knew would ultimately become permanent flight restrictions. They didn't want us flying near nuclear power plants, but then they wouldn't tell us where the nuclear power plants were. They didn't want us charting them. They wanted any indication. They wanted them taken off the charts. And it's like, well, how do you expect us to avoid them if you won't tell us where they are? And just a lot of silliness like that. And AOPA was very involved in making sure that general aviation got back into flying quickly. And it was only, less than a week, as I recall, before we were back out flying on instrument flight plans first. And they just couldn't get their heads around, the security agencies, which had kind of just been hands off with general aviation for all those years. When all this happened, they couldn't get their head around the idea that it was okay and that it happened every day prior to this, so people could take off from an uncontrolled airport and just go flying without talking to anybody. And that's everywhere here in the United States. I mean, you got non-towered airports all over the place and a lot of unrestricted airspace. You just go flying anytime you want, anywhere you want, almost. And so security agencies, when they kind of found that out, it's like, well, this can't be good. We must put a stop to this, even though it had been going on for decades without any kind of incident. And so it took a lot of education and just a lot of negotiation to help them understand that we weren't a security risk, that a 1,600-pound Cessna 172 was not a threat, even when it's full of fuel. And so it was challenging times. It was a lot of education of the security agencies. But finally, we got VFR flying back up within a couple of weeks in most areas, and then took longer time. We had the mayor of Chicago thought he should have a special TFR over Chicago just because it was a big city, and we managed to get that shut down as well. And of course, we still have restrictions over Washington, D.C. that we didn't have before, but most of us have figured out how to deal with that and get around. Fortunately, Frederick, Maryland, where we are, we're just outside of that, so we can kind of maneuver around without having to deal with it. But even when we have to deal with it, it's manageable, and they've been pretty good about being accommodating. So that was certainly a tragic day. A lot of other ones, when John F. Kennedy Jr. was killed in the airplane crash, that was a major issue for AOPA. I was heavily involved. I did a bunch of TV and radio interviews. Interestingly, he was flying a Saratoga, Piper Saratoga, and the cover of our magazine that month happened to be a Piper Saratoga that I had flown the airplane and written the story. And so I began getting calls pretty quickly from the networks and a bunch of others. Actually, early the next morning, they began calling me. I don't know how they found me back in those days, but ended up doing a bunch of interviews and that sort of thing to talk about general aviation safety and the fact that the Piper Saratoga had been around a long time. The PA-32 had been out there since the early 60s, and it was a safe airplane. And we didn't want to speculate, of course, about what had happened, although we all had our sense of what was going on, that it was a very hazy summer day, and he was flying at night. And I actually flew the next day, and the haze was still out there. And if you didn't have an instrument rating, which he did not, the ability to fly around and have any kind of horizon, it was just terribly hazy, summer haze. And it's no wonder him particularly flying at night without an instrument rating that he lost the airplane apparently when he started the descent into the island there and in Cape Cod. And so my speculation is he turned the autopilot off and did the descent by hand, which was a big mistake. If he just left the autopilot on for the descent, got down below the haze, they'd probably still be alive today. So again, that was a tough one.
Bringing you right up to date, obviously, still involved with aviation. Tell us a little bit about your latest project, which is Elephants, Rhinos, and People.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So that's an amazing group that they reached out to me shortly after I retired and asked me if I'd come on board and help them with a couple of aviation projects. ERP is a South African nonprofit, and they own vast tracts of land in South Africa and Namibia, all with the idea of protecting the elephants and the rhinos and helping the people who live near the preserves that they've created, helping them have better lives and giving them entrepreneurial training and helping their kids get better education so they'll end up with better lives. A lot of really incredible projects that they've done for the communities around these preserves to help the people there, all with the idea that if they have better lives, they're less likely to support poaching. And their properties that they've acquired and control in Namibia are so vast and so spread apart that they finally decided that they needed some airplanes to help get around. And so they asked me if I would help them figure out the right airplanes for the missions and help them basically stand up what we're calling the ERP Air Wing in Namibia. So we went through an exercise and decided that the CubCrafters NXCub, which is the nose gill version of the CubCrafters, would be a good candidate. The runways there are not super challenging, not nearly as challenging as some of the ones we have in the Western United States, for example, but they're still somewhat challenging. And so an airplane that has some off-field and backcountry capabilities would be a good choice. But we ultimately wanted to, in sort of a phase two, invite some pilots with U.S. pilot certificates, because we plan to keep them N-registered, invite them over to be able to fly some of the missions, particularly the herd monitoring missions, and get involved and help support the organization by flying these airplanes out to some of the lodges as well while they're doing some herd monitoring, land at some of the lodges and be able to do game drives and photo safari kind of things for a day or so, and then fly over some more of the properties and land at a different lodge and experience the animals that way and fly around Namibia. with the use of these airplanes, and then pay for that experience, which would help fund the whole Air Wing project so that it would relieve the nonprofit of some of the cost of operating the airplanes, and then they can put the money that they have into other things like acquiring more property. So it's been an interesting exercise. We have placed 2 orders with CubCrafters. Wow. So we've got our first 2 airplanes ordered. We expect they're going to start building the first factory-built one at the end of January. And we'll expect to have both the airplanes finished by probably late spring, early summer of next year, and put them in crates and ship them off to South Africa, probably, where they will get reassembled and then moved into Namibia, where they'll be put into service. For the first 2 airplanes, ultimately, we'd like to have 2 more airplanes. So I'm helping them kind of figure out how to best manage and operate the airplanes in Namibia now that we've decided on what airplanes we want. And then we're looking at how do we pay for all of this? And we've begun some fundraising efforts. We've got some fundraising experts helping us with that. And so if y'all have any, last end of year charitable deductions that you'd like to make, we'd love to have it over at erp.ngo. So feel free to chip in.
Fantastic.
You don't get those same tax breaks as you do at the end of the year.
Okay. Well, regardless, we'll take the pounds or the dollars, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. So we look forward to maybe when you've got the aeroplanes and they're in service, come back and talk to us and let us know how that is going, because that sounds like a really exciting project.
It is, and it's very fun. They invited me over. I've flown in Southern Africa a couple of times, South Africa, Botswana, Zambia, and they invited me back over last year to see some of the projects they're working on in Namibia and South Africa. And I did a little bit of flying in a 210 in Namibia, and yeah, it was great fun. It's an incredible experience if you get the chance to fly in Africa and go see the animals, particularly, flying a GA airplane and moving around some of the countries. I've done it only in Southern Africa, and actually I've flown in Egypt too, in Northern Africa, but not to see the animals. But the animals experience is just incredible. You will have a wonderful time and be in awe of the animals that you get to see on these safaris. It's super fun.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, Derek King sums things up very well. He said, best guest ever. I followed Tom's writing for many years and watched his videos every week until sadly he retired. Well, people do that. They do retire, but yeah.
Thank you, Derek.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Tom, for coming on. Maybe we'll pop you back in the green room and you can come out and give us your maybe deciding vote on Fantasy Hangar. Okay.
I'll look forward to that.
Excellent. So it must be time for a Fantasy Hangar. Very good. So this week, because we've had the sad news that flight design has been declared bankrupt again, that made us think about airplanes that are no longer built because the companies that made them have gone the same way. But there's a surprisingly big selection. When we talked about this initially, we thought maybe there won't be many, but actually there's quite a few. So who's first?
It's young Johnny.
Yes. So I've gone for the Monocoop 110 Special, which is basically a variant built to meet the needs of racing pilots. It had shorter wingspan, slightly larger engine, fairings and spats added. And the company itself is, if you can go on Wikipedia and read about the Monocoop airplane company. It's been passed around through all sorts of different people and places. It's come and gone again. It disappeared before Second World War. It then popped up, I think, briefly after the Second World War, resuming the Monocoop name, and then it was reorganized as Monocoop Aircraft of Florida in Melbourne, and then it came back as the Mono Aircraft Company in Kansas, and then appeared in California in Oxnard. So yeah, it's been around a lot, but the final paragraph at least on the Wikipedia entry does suggest that there has been recent attempts to try and rejuvenate the aeroplane.
I know the guy who owns the type certificates for all the monocoups, and let's not forget that Aviat at one time they rolled out a 110 special with a Lycoming and went, "Hey, we're going to build this," and everyone looked and went, "This will be a unique way to buy an aeroplane and kill myself," because they're not, you know, they're quite very sporty, and well, a Lycoming powered one might have been a bit better. The radial powered clip wing monocoupe, all you can see when you look out the windscreen is radial. So
I'd love to see a Mew Gull and a 110 special flying side by side.
Yes, yeah.
I should have paid more attention when we did aeronautical engineering in junior school.
Why?
But I didn't, because you look at that, and the first thing I go, how can you have an aeroplane like that with a tail that size? Well, and then you end up with something like a Staggerwing, which has just got a ridiculous bloody size.
The 110. I don't want to get too nerdy, but because I know a lot about the 110 special. Because weirdly, I nearly bought that aeroplane in that photo.
What?
But luckily, I had a friend of mine talked some sense into me and said this will be a terrible idea for the UK, and it would have been. It would have been amazing, but it would have been a crazy idea. But the 110 special, they took the tail on the monocoupe, which was tiny anyway, and made it even smaller. And apparently the thing wants to swap ends all the time.
What a surprise.
Yeah. But it's a racer through and through. Bonkers aeroplane. Great start, Johnny. I feel that could win.
I think so. I reckon Dave's got something that's even better looking than that, though.
Go on, Dave. Hit us with it. I was going to say, is it Luscombe? But Luscombe's never been bust. Dave, you're silent.
We can't hear you.
Dave, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I turned it off because I could hear. Anyway, can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
So mine isn't anywhere near as exciting, but I've gone for the Beagle Bulldog, Beagle Aircraft Company. I initially went for the Beagle Bulldog. The Beagle Aircraft Company went bust, became produced by Scottish Aviation, which was then absorbed into British Aerospace. But then when I was researching it and looking up on the British Aerospace website, I came across this, which is the retractable version of the Bulldog. It's called the Bullfinch. And there's only one flying. It's still flying. It's still got a C of A. It's still flying okay. And I think this should go back into production. If you've ever flown a Bulldog, they're a lovely aircraft to fly, you know, aerobatic to some extent, and very tough, and got a real proper warbird history, if you like, in terms that they've been flown by the military. And I think this would be a superb aircraft to put back into production.
You warbird bit light touch, but it's okay. I've got to say, retractable Bulldog that's quite an attractive proposition.
So, I was a bit worried at first because you don't forget this is called Fantasy Hangar, and you know while the Bulldogs are flying aircraft, I'm not sure how many people's fantasy it has a leading role in.
I don't know, but maybe there's weirdos out there.
There are. That's true. But Ed, you're next.
I'm next. I went for this little beauty. It's the Globe Swift, designed by R.S. Pop Johnson in 1940. It wasn't until 1946 that Globe Aircraft finally got around to making this. They re-engineered it a bit and made it all metal, and this was the all-metal Swift with 125 horsepower. It was popular, sporty, people liked it. But as is often the case, Globe's production eventually outpaced the sales of it, and they went into insolvency. There was a company called Temco, who were the largest creditor. They got the company and took it over and built a few more, but in the end, only 1,500 Swifts were built, which was still a reasonable number, and they're super popular today. But I think that the Swift is a beautiful little sporty machine, and amazingly has two insolvency stories in the hands of two different companies. Because obviously the Swift was going to go back into production as the Piper Swift Fury in 1989 in conjunction with Lopresti. It was gorgeous, beautiful thing, and there were over 500 orders, and then Piper went bankrupt in 1991, and the Swift Fury was but a dream. So.
What happened with the Lopresti version of it then?
Well, that was the Lepresti. When Piper went bankrupt, Lepresti got ownership of that demonstrator aeroplane, which obviously we got to fly, didn't we?
And that was going to go back in. That was another one of those projects that was going to go back into production that didn't quite go back.
There's many projects, aren't there? There's projects that never quite make it, that spend their life never quite making it.
Yeah, yeah. Talking of, I mean, that you could call them dreamers or you could call them visionaries. I suppose it depends on your perspective, doesn't it? Really. So I guess my turn next. I'm gonna and last, and I have to say, I think it's quite a nice little aircraft.
I quite like it.
This is a Johnson rocket. I mean, look at that kind of 1950s. I think 180. It was powered by a Lycoming, or is powered by a Lycoming O290, which is a bit of a
that would have been a bit gutless initially. I would have thought was there a slightly bigger engine version eventually?
I think there was, because it's 180 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And whenever you're quoting speeds in miles per hour, you know you're a little bit desperate, don't you? But we were actually due to fly that airplane out of Spruce Creek, and I can't remember why it didn't happen in the end. We spent a long time talking to the owner and sitting in the tiny. I mean, it's a 4-place airplane, but it's tiny inside.
It was a fantastic thing, wasn't it? And I think he was a bit nervous about the winds, which is fair enough. Whenever there's a flight test, you always want things to be spot on.
I think he was a little. I mean, it's not the sort of thing that you could phone up your local parts supplier and say, "I need a new gear for this, please."
No.
But I think there was. I mean, how many was built? 18 built in the end, or something. I think that was one of those things where
I think there's 3.
Was a better salesperson than he was a manufacturing businessman, I believe.
And clearly a bit of a talent, because obviously that's a name that's figured in my Swift story and your Johnson rocket story. So,
well, and I was saying there's another person whose name features in a lot of aircraft, some of which are classics and some of which are what's the word I'm looking for? Fantastical, should we say, in a not particularly positive business sense. Can you think of who I'm talking about?
I'm not sure.
And I've just forgotten his name. But let me.
Brilliant reveal. Hey.
No, I'll give you another clue. He had a penchant for gluing wings together.
But doesn't really narrow it down.
Involved in this a little bit in the sort of space program, maybe. AA5.
Oh, BD,
Jim, and obviously the BD.
There we go. Yeah, look,
someone else. I think there are probably some similarities between Jim Beattie and Pop Johnson. That's what I'm trying to say.
There's surely there are aeroplanes where they've had real go-getters behind them. So sometimes in the ideas, maybe not in the execution.
Aeroplane companies need go-getters. They need sensible people. They need stacks of money, and they need more customers. Let's have a word with Tom and see what.
I think Tom has probably more GA experience than most. So Tom, if you had to put one of those in your fancy hangar, what would it be?
I would choose a more modern airplane than you guys were talking about. I would choose the Columbia 350.
Tom, we're going to have to let you go. Bye.
I just think that was such a shame. Lance Niebuhr was an amazing airplane designer. If you remember the Lancers kit planes and really fast, cool little airplanes. And he developed the Lancer ES as a kit built, and then he decided he wanted a production airplane. So he's created a new company called Columbia Aircraft to develop the ES into a certified airplane. Ultimately got there. And then immediately, like a lot of other manufacturers, ran into financial problems, and they did sell some Columbia 350s. They had a bunch of them sitting on the ramp ready to be delivered when a hailstorm came through, did major damage to like a whole fleet of their airplanes, and it just sunk the company. They could not recover from that. They went bankrupt. I think that was about 2007, and Textron swooped in at the right after bankruptcy. I mean, literally, I think as soon as it was filed or executed, they actually swept in, bought the company, and ultimately became the Cessna 400, and the Corvallis was in there somewhere, and the TTX, and they had a bunch of different names with it. And Cessna couldn't quite figure out what to do with this really wonderful airplane. It was a great flying airplane, and I enjoyed flying it more than a Cirrus. It's sort of definitely a competitor with a Cirrus, but I thought it handles better than a Cirrus from a flying standpoint. Doesn't have a parachute though, and I think that was a big selling point, obviously, for Cirrus, and they've done extremely well with that. And the 350 and the 400 didn't have that. Cessna, it was a composite airplane, low wing. Cessna didn't know what to do with it. And it struggled because they didn't market it well. They didn't, really put it into their sales team's hands in a helpful way. And in the end, they stopped producing it. But I think if somebody were to grab a hold of that type certificate and put that thing into production, probably need to put a parachute in it just to stop all the debate about, should you have one, shouldn't you have one? That it would be a good competitor to Cirrus, and I think they would get some sales. Cirrus sells 600 and some airplanes a year. If they could tap, 20% of that, they would have a decent market. So, we'll see.
If we had to tempt you with one of our choices, would it be Monocoop Swift, Johnson Rocket, or Bull?
Well, I would say I'm going to go with you, Ed, on the Globe, really on the Swift. I like you guys, lived the whole Lepresti Swift Fury thing and watched all that, explode and all those orders come in and then the whole thing kind of fall apart, unfortunately. But I think the Swift itself is just a fascinating little airplane and really beautiful to look at. The polished ones are spectacular. And I've been down to the museum that they have down in Tennessee and talked to the folks down there a couple times over the years. And, just fascinating support system for it out there. And the number of modifications you can do it is just unbelievable. You want big engines, little engines, different kind of canopy, all that kind of stuff can be done.
There we go. I crown myself the winner.
Did everyone in the comments agree with you?
Well, not really. No. Roger Brackle agreed with me, but there was a lot of Johnny wins. So, which I fully support because I do love the Monaco. I just wouldn't want.
Yeah. I think Johnny wins this one.
Well, there was Dave wins. No, Dave wins. Dave first. So.
So this is a democracy now. When did this start?
It's not a democracy.
No one trumps your decision, though.
Yeah. We asked Elon Musk, and he said it couldn't be a democracy. Anyway, moving on.
Anyway, good. Dave, events.
Dave, events. Yes.
Yes. Yep. The next flying events we know of, anyway, are on New Year's Day when there are two, Bodmin and Slape. If you hear of any more, it's too late. We're not here for Christmas. We can't do anything with them.
That's it.
Am I doing this last bit? Don't forget, if you enjoy our content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Flyer YouTube channel.
Fantastic. Great. Right. I think that's about it. We've well and truly busted our time. Thank you. Excellent guest. And I think I just need to find the bit that turns it off now. Where's that gone?
Tom, thank you very much for joining us. Happy Christmas.
Absolutely. Thank you. Great hanging out with you guys. Thanks so much for the invitation.
And we'll see you. Merry Christmas.